Hello and welcome to the Journey to a Dream podcast brought to you by Kawasaki Insurance. And if this is your first time with us, you are very, very welcome. This podcast is all about talking to people who are involved in many different aspects of motorcycle racing here on the Isle of Man. And it's really about finding out what goes on in their minds, why they do what they do. And today's guest is really interesting because he, like some of our other guests that you'll be able to find on the podcast list, he is somebody who has seen it from two very different sides. Let's meet him now.
I'm Derran Slous, ex-Manx Grand Prix and TT racer, current Travelling Marshal.
So, Derran, when did racing all start for you?
Around about 2001. I used to spanner for other guys, and I did a lot of spannering. Then I was actually setting bikes up for them, and then that sort of progressed, and in the end I got asked, do you fancy a ride on a bike? And I thought, oh yeah, why not? So that was really nice. I mean, the guy that was running his son at the time, which was James Muir, Terry, his father, absolutely smashing bloke. He built these beautiful bikes. He had an ex-Team France Kawasaki. He used to work for them, and it was one of the things. He goes, take it out, get a racing license and take it out, which I did. Could
you ride a bike anyway?
I could ride a bike anyway. Like I say, I used to ride on the road and help set up bikes, build bikes and stuff like that. I was pretty hands-on. Yeah, it was really enjoyable. And then, so when I got out there onto the racetrack, it was straight away. I was sort of showed I had a little bit of talent as such. You know, not blowing any trumpets or anything like that, but I went into done a newcomers race, and Tommy Klukas was just sort of dominating it, and I came second to Tommy. You know, I knew who Tommy was. I thought, oh well, you know, I feel pretty good about this. So it just sort of started from there and fruitated as such.
Within your family, was there a love of bikes generally?
No. I came over to the island as a child in 1980, and the first place we lived was right at the end of Kirkmichael. Literally, the little cottage is on the apex at the end, opposite the White House. And the first things I see is these bikes coming through, Mick Grant and the likes. And it was just phenomenal. Like, I was sort of blown away. And that just got me hooked. I just wanted to watch motorbikes. You know, just sort of evolved from there. And I ended up working glass collecting at pubs, you know, at the sort of like Ballacrane, Kirkmichael, the Raven. So I get to watch bikes as well as earning a couple of quid, and then I could buy my own bike, which I did. I bought a bike for £5, got myself out there, and had to learn how to fix it, because even back then a £5 bike wasn't sort of a reliable machine, you know. That got me out there, that's it, you know. I was out there riding around a field, learning how to ride a bike, that's it.
I love the idea that you would only really work on places that were on the TT course. That's ingenious.
Yeah, well, you could get a job every TT, every Manx Grand Prix. They were looking for kids to collect glasses, wash pots and so on, you know, and that's all I did. And if I wasn't doing that, I'd go out grass cutting for people and stuff like that, you know. It was just, I needed that money for that bike, and that's all it was.
And so if bikes weren't necessarily something that had been very predominant in your family, how did your family take to your keen interest?
I remember my mum saying, it's fine, it's okay, it's just a passing phase. You know, get it out your system. And unfortunately, for her, it's not. I never got it out of my system. It's been a great journey. I've really enjoyed it, you know. I'll never sort of look back and say I should have done this and I could have done that, which we all can say. You know, you've just got to go with the flow of what happens at the time, you know. So, yeah, there's no regrets. Everything's been enjoyable in what I've done with bikes.
So you went from the spannering, you tried out on the racetrack, discovered, as you said, that there was a little bit of a talent there, which I think you're quite modest about, really. What happened to get you to the next level? What do you remember about that sort of process?
It was very, very fast, sort of the way I entered it as such. I literally, when I got my licence and I realised I could do it, so that was basically the end of 2001. So, I mean, I wasn't a spring chicken or anything then, you know. Had a bit of age on me as such. But the next year I thought, right, that's it, I'm going to build a bike and we're going to go race. I'm going to have a proper race bike, my own, and so on. And that's what we did. And what I was doing, I was going to the UK, and I was just every other weekend, I was in the UK racing. And I happened to be the places where I was going, I was winning races, and I thought, this is getting better, you know. So I was, you know, like to Darley Moor and, you know, Aintree and Three Sisters and stuff like that, you know. It was all like stuff that was close, you know, not far to get. And then I was doing the local scene as well, but Derby, absolutely fantastic with having it on your doorstep. So I was just racing every other weekend, racing. It got me up to my national licence pretty much straight away. So I had national in the first year, doing the Southern 100. And 2002 was my debut as a newcomer at the Manx. So I'd literally just got my national licence in basically my first year of racing.
That's super quick, isn't it?
Yeah, very quick. Usually they like to, obviously, even back then, they like to have at least a year's worth of racing under your belt at national level. Well, I'd got to national level and then I was obviously straight in. And anyway, they gave me an entry as a newcomer. Because of the results I'd done, I think they must have been happy with my ability. Everything was going great, going fine. Paul Duckett was my guide as such, you know. You went round in the bus, but because he was active in doing the Manx Grand Prix, he was taking me around and showing me laps on practice. That's when we had morning practices and evening practices. Practice. Yeah, I was getting the laps in. It was going great. I wouldn't say I was sandbagging as such, but I wasn't given my full potential. But come the Thursday night, I was third on the leaderboard in the newcomers race. I thought, right, I'm going to go out on the Friday evening. I'm going to crack that throttle open. I want to top it, you know. I want to be at the front. Stupidly, I didn't listen to everyone around me and people with more knowledge. I was still young in the racing head and knowledge in that sort of sense. You should, how should I say, make haste slowly. I didn't. People were down there. I remember seeing the likes of Martin Bullock saying I wouldn't go out if I was yourself. You know, it's starting to rain and, you know, the drizzle's coming down. But nope, I still had it in my head I could go out there and crack the fastest lap, you know, to get me top of the leaderboard. Not that it matters. You don't have to have a leaderboard, really, do you? You know, it's against yourself. But anyway, big egos and all that. I went out, got to Braddon Bridge, lost the front in the wet, hit what was then bales, and they didn't have the air fencing then, and I broke my leg. And basically, that ruled me out of actually getting to the race on the Monday. I was adamant I hadn't broken my leg, but I was ruled out by the doctors I had broke my leg. You know, I did try and get back on it, and
I could just imagine. I mean, that just sounds absolutely ludicrous that you would be sitting there clearly in a lot of pain, but just trying to convince people, no, I'm all right. It's like a flipping Monty Python sketch, isn't it?
It is. I remember sitting in the ambulance. They red flagged the race anyway because of the rain, and the ambulance guy said, do you want a helicopter or do you want? I go, for nothing, I'll be all right, I can walk back. Because no, you've clearly broken your leg. And I goes, no, I haven't. I was adamant I hadn't broke my leg. It was until he said, well, okay, then you try and walk out of the ambulance. And I did. I actually tried, and I got down the steps, sort of holding me weight up with my arms, cheating myself, but I had to turn back and say, okay, you're right.
Was that the first big injury you'd had?
I had injuries from riding bikes on the road. I nearly lost my foot once where I'd crashed and the gear lever went inside and so on, and I've shattered my kneecap and just other little bits and bobs. But that was the one on the TT circuit. Well, that's the only injury I've had on the TT circuit. Touch wood, and I don't have any more as such. Yeah, so that broke my leg. So then that put me into the next season. I thought, right, that's it now. I need to go into the next season with a bit more mature in mind, which I did. Sort of built a bike with a couple of friends.
There was no question of you doing it again, though. There was no part of you thought, oh, maybe I don't want to potentially put myself in danger of something else happening.
Oh God, no. I mean, no. Injuries are just a hindrance at the time. You know, you just want to get back on. I mean, I think I was racing. Yeah, I got asked to race at the Stars of Dali 5 weeks after that, and I raced at the Stars of Dali 5 weeks because.
Should you have been racing 5 weeks later?
I was going to the hyperbaric chamber. Absolutely fantastic what they've got up there, you know. So I was in there seeing Dave. He had me in. I was in there every single day. Hyperbaric chamber, and then just doing my own sort of physio. I was actually riding my motorbike to get up there. I had my crutches in a rucksack, and because it was easier to get around on a motorbike till I could buy an automatic car, you know, because I couldn't use the clutch. But I could get to Douglas, get in the hyperbaric chamber. 5 weeks later, I was racing up at Darling. I wouldn't say I was sort of 100% fit with the strength, but I was able and capable to ride safely and still fast.
That is incredible, Derran. And we were talking just before we started recording this, that if you could bottle what it is that makes, it seems, particularly road races tick, that determination, that complete single-mindedness. I mean, honestly, you'd make a fortune, because it's just, you know, there's my goal, a little bit of a hindrance, but it's still there. That was still the number one priority, given the fact that you'd obviously gone through quite a significant trauma, not only physically, but also financially, what you must have put into getting to the start line in 2002.
Absolutely, yeah. Any racer will tell you, you know, that unfortunately it is a selfish sport for the rider. The rider is just fixated on what he wants to do, and that's go racing. Families are there behind them, supporting them all the way, you know, and it is expensive, and you couldn't do it without the sponsors and the likes, you know. You really do need them, but it takes everything. It doesn't just take up finances, it takes up time as well, so there's a lot of sacrifices that come with it. And I think when you've already got that fixation and that mindset, an injury isn't an issue. All you want to do is get past that injury and get back to doing what you're doing. That's what you're thinking of, is, you know, let's get... Bikes can fix, you can fix, you know, bodies are pretty good. Let's get fixed, let's get out there.
So 2002 into 2003 then, that was just, I guess, a repeat of just getting back to that start line.
Absolutely. There was word that they were going to try and get me back in, because it was newcomer races back then, as a newcomer. So they said, enter as a newcomer and we'll see, can you redo it? So I did apply. They said yes at the time. But then it got closer to the date, and a few of the Irish lads that were doing well, I think they had a bit of a issue because I had qualified, so, which is understandable. So I never actually then got to be a newcomer. They withdrew me as a newcomer, so I just went into the main races, which was great, you know. I thought it was fantastic. So I built a little 400 there, which was a smashing little bike. I wasn't sort of knowledgeable in what I needed to do completely as a TT machine. You know, you can build a bike for a short circuit. To build a TT bike is just another level. Anyway, we coupled the bike. I think we had about 2 weeks prior to the race, and we got it out there and we were riding it, and it done really well. I mean, in the actual race, at the end of the race, I got pulled in thinking that I might have got third place, but I hadn't. I just missed it by about a second or so, so I ended up then going further up the road because I got fourth. But I was happy with that, you know. It was like fourth place for my first, basically, Manx Grand Prix, and I thought, this is great. I also had a 600, which I was using of Kringles, you know, the Kringle lads, or their father and uncle. They were running a team with Big H, so I was running one of their 600s as well through Andy Farragher, AJ. Unfortunately, that expired at Solby Straight on me, but that's racing again, isn't it? You know, I mean, I see lots of breakdowns now, but, you know, I've had a fair few. Even morning practices stuck up on that mountain after breaking down, and it gets a bit cold and lonely up there. Again, it's just one of them things. It's part of the parcel. I
mean, that is incredible, a fourth place finish in what was still your first MGP. And then the following year, you moved to the TT. Was that always the plan?
Yes, it wasn't planned, no. I would have liked to have stayed at the Manx Grand Prix. Given the advice, everyone says, stay at the Manx Grand Prix and better yourself in that sense. I'm still new to the whole scene, but the issue was it was going to be the last 400 125 race in 2004. That'll be the last ever time they'll run them, and I thought, I'm starting to build a good bike here. I know it's good. I really want to run it. So I thought, I'm just going to have to enter the TT, and I got accepted. So I was riding, obviously, my 400 and 750 ZX, ZX 7RR from Mark Mann, and that was a beautiful bike too, you know. So I got them two bikes. The 400 was going really, really well at first. Slick dummy and engine. He'd actually built the engine for the year before, and it was just something I wanted, reliable. I wasn't looking for lots of power. It wasn't a massively powerful engine. It was just nice and safe, but fairly fast. I think it was 73 horse. It maxed out at... Yeah, everything was going well. I had a tank made, carbon fibre tank, and I'd done this and I'd done that. This bike was, you know, I thought it'll do all right. The only thing I couldn't do with building the bike was I built it so it could do 4 laps, but because I was concentrating on the other bike and with mixed weather again, the issue was being I never got to try to measure the fuel to see if it would do all the 4 laps. Anyway, I thought, I'll just go 3 laps, come in, splash dash, go again. So that was all fine. I think I got to the 3rd lap and I was getting bored, so I was in 3rd place. I thought, this is brilliant, 3rd place. So anyway, pulled in, put my foot down, got me fuel, a little splash of fuel in, and just went to pull off, and the clutch started slipping. I thought, no. So it was literally, my heart was breaking, but I thought, rather than just give up, I thought, I'll nurse it back. I've just got to nurse it back. And the bike wasn't going too bad, you know. It was holding itself, but the clutch was getting worse and worse. Anyway, I came in, and when they told me I got 6th, I was over the moon. When you're lying in 3rd, the crowds just jump out the hedges and they're all rooting for you, you know. It's an amazing feeling. When I got back and I got the sixth, like, the crowds weren't coming out. You know what I mean?
People still love the hero story, though, when they think about what you've gone through over a really long lap. It must be when you know something's not right and your confidence in the machine isn't quite there. I mean, that is quite something to finish in those circumstances.
It is. I mean, the Isle of Man, it's unique. It's so special in its own way, and I've always had in my head, it is man and machine, or woman and machine, you know. It's everything combined. It's got to finish. If you're at a short circuit, you get issues with the bike, you'll just pull it in. It doesn't matter. It's like, it's pointless pushing it to the end, you know. The Isle of Man, to get a finish around here means a hell of a lot, because just the reliability of anything around here. I mean, we have standard bikes for the other job that I'm doing now, and you're always continuously turning spanners on them. A bike will get pulled apart going around this TT circuit. So if you can build a race machine and you can ride around here and get a finish, that in itself is an amazing feat.
And it clearly was a really good bike. It was just, I don't know whether you ever work out what really goes wrong in those circumstances, but was this the bike you got the lap record on in the Southern 100 course?
Yes. I mean, the bike was fast. I got the fastest lap as well at the TT on the third lap because it was going really well, but I had finding problems with ground clearance. And again, I only had standard rear sets. I didn't put race ones on or get them made or anything. And the Southern that year, we were testing up at Derby with Slick, and we just thought, well, hang on, if we're just grinding out, why don't we just cut the foot pegs in half? Which is what we did, and all of a sudden I was like lapping Derby another second and a half quicker because I could get the lean angle. So yeah, we took it down to the Southern 100, and I went round there, got the lap record, and it stood for 4 years on that bike. And the beauty of it afterwards, the bike obviously got sold on, moved on to new owners. Roy Richardson then rode it down there, but he then took the lap record off me, and that still stands to this day. I mean, that little bike with that engine that Slick Bass built, it was fantastic. So from the day one, that engine was in there. So it managed to obviously do the Manx that I did. It's obviously with refreshers. Do the TT, obviously came sixth. Then winning the Southern 100, lap record at the Southern 100. JB Road as well. I'd won at JB Road when they used to have that. I won the 2005 400 Championship as well up at JB on it. John Burroughs rode it in Ireland, did the Northwest 200, and that's his only ever international win. So that was on that bike. Then 2009, Carolyn Sells then rode the same bike, and obviously she got her win as well. So I mean, the bike's absolutely, I think it was a great little bike anyway, and that engine was the one Slick done.
Yeah, such affection for that machine. I suppose people listening who may not be directly involved in this sort of motorsport world don't realise just how often maybe a machine passes from person to person, and if you're so attached to it, it must be really hard to let it go.
It is. It's funny, you can have two identical bikes, and I mean identical. You can build them at the same time with all the same equipment, the same suspension, the same brakes, same everything, yet one will ride different to the other. They are bizarre. They're almost sort of act in their own sort of way. Some can be an old pair of slippers, some can be like a set of spikes under your feet. That bike worked not just for me, so some bikes work for some people, some don't for others. But this bike seemed to work for everyone. You know, everyone could get on this bike, and it just did what it did.
Do you know where it is now?
Murray's Museum, yeah. So it's just sitting there gathering dust, unfortunately, because I think if they brought it back out, it'd do right well.
Watch this space, eh? So it was TT, let me just get this right, TT 2004, and you competed every year up until 2007?
No, so 2004, obviously I'd done that. I also had a 750, like I said, a Mark Man in 04, which I came third in class in the Formula 1. It was a good TT for me. Andy Wallace, he won that race. Bless him, he lost his life later that year at the Ulster, I think it was. But anyway, that took me into 2005. So we're coming into the season, and I'm looking, people are offering me rides now. This could be quite good. And Slick, again, come along, and he was working for a team called Shawgas, and they were doing British Superbikes and the likes. So they wanted to get into road racing, and they had the backing from MSS Kawasaki. So they asked, would I ride? Well, absolutely, I'll ride, you know. So we had a couple of ZX10s, brand new, super stock, Superbike, Gixxer 6 as well, and I obviously had my 4, so it was going to be a full assault of everything, and we were going to do the 2005 season, and I mean hit everything, unfortunately, as it happens with racing. I was away in Ireland. That was okay. I was up racing in Cookstown. I had my 400 there. I think I was racing a 600 of Stu Bainborough, actually, which is the next Tommy Clucas bike at Cookstown. But then I had to fly back over to the Isle of Man to just stretch the legs on the 2ZX10s, the 600, and also then get back to do Tandragee, ready for Northwest, then TT, Ulster, and so on and so forth. Well, that was the plan. Anyway, I got back to the Isle of Man, and I didn't have a 400. Again, I was leading the championship, which I won ultimately anyway in 2005 somehow, but I borrowed a 400. I was having some great races on the Thau. Nigel Beattie at the time was the guy that was winning everything. I could just sort of get on his tail. I could never quite beat him. I could get ahead and then he'd get past me again. Anyway, 600, that was great. That was all going well. Jumped on the 400. I'd poled it. Went out in the first race. Everything was going great for the first couple of corners, and then the throttle stuck open, which obviously launched me off, and I broke my scapula and my collarbone in 2 places, so I ended up with what was called a floating shoulder, amongst other injuries. But that sort of stepped me back a little bit. Hence, then John Burrow was riding my 400 at the Northwest because I couldn't ride it there. Stu Bone was great because he obviously had all the kit still over in Ireland. He brought everything back. We tried to sort of salvage something out of it, so we went down to the Southern 100 after obviously TT and all's done. Went to the Southern 100 and rode the 210s, but we were having handling issues with the ZX10s, but the 400 was going great, and that's, again, like I say, getting the lap record was, you know, it was just something that was nice to come out of it all. And
presumably you were still dealing with the injuries as well. I mean, that was still pretty early days in your recovery. Yeah, well, I nearly didn't get me acceptance to actually ride by the doctors for the Southern 100, but told them I'd been up the day before up at Derby, and I'd done 240 left-handed laps. You know, we were obviously counting them all, and we were thinking if my shoulder was going to give way, it would have gave way there and then, if you know what I'm saying. So I think they were happy enough. If I hadn't have snapped, well, I was okay, let's carry on. So yeah, and that's what we did. But then that took us to then Derby Road straight after the Southern. We were out there in practice. A few handling issues again with the 10s. The 4 was going well again, beautiful. But then Terry Smith, he lost his life and the race got cancelled. It's a shame. He was a lovely fella too. Yeah, so the race got cancelled, and then it was sort of after that I've let the team down big time with my injuries and what I'd done, and I didn't want to be any more of a burden than I already was as such. That was like in my head. So I thought I need to step back and sort of analyse what I'm doing here with the bikes and so on. Such a big team, putting so much effort and so much money for me not to ride them, and they were still trying to sort of salvage again by saying, well, let's go and do the Ulster. I thought, I don't feel like my head's in the right place to go and do the Ulster now after what's going on. Like, you know, Terry was a good friend as well that just lost his life, and the way everything was going, I thought, all right, I'll just have to knock it on the head. But the good thing that came out of it at the time, Dan Neem was looking for a ride, and then he went and rode for Slick and Sure Gas. But he went on to do so much, so, you know, it was absolutely brilliant. It felt good knowing that another local lad was then taking over some good bikes and a good team, if you know what I mean, from myself. That's the really interesting side of this sport, isn't it? I mean, it's great, as you say, and Dan Nean's so loved over here, and people really love to see local riders do so well. But the other side to that is, obviously, you mentioned Terry losing his life, and then Dan Neen some years later. That side of the sport is really difficult to understand. How do you deal with that? Like I was saying before, it's a selfish sport. It really, really is. And again, your family will back you. I think we all know, you don't think about it, we all think we're invincible, we're all immortal. You know, it won't happen to us, but it does. You know, even to the best. It's not just rider error, it can be mechanical error, it could be absolutely anything. It could be weather related, it could be even something like Nick Crow, for instance, in the sidecar, a rabbit coming out, you know, it can be absolutely anything, you know. But the other side to that is, I mean, we know we're doing something that's a dangerous sport, but we're now in a sport that's getting made safer and safer. Everyone around it and everyone involved in the sport is making it so it is less chance of fatalities and the likes, or even serious injuries. I mean, let's go back to the 60s and 70s, 50s and so on. Like, you know, it really was like stone walls, that's it. You know, now you've got
airbags and what used to be bales and stuff. It's just getting better and better. And then on top of that, it's the way everything's managed, is getting safer and safer and safer. So when it does happen, it isn't nice. I've been to so many funerals of friends that have lost their lives in the sport, and none of them would want you to stop. If I'd lost my life doing it, I wouldn't expect everyone to go, oh, gee, you need to stop this. It is absolutely crackers. You want people to live their life, and riding for that brief time, you feel alive. You could sit at home, you could bake cakes all day and, do whatever, it's like, be safe as houses. You can't wrap yourself up in cotton wool. You could go outside and you could have another unfortunate accident, anything can happen. But I know you're making the odds a bit sort of higher with racing, but you've got to live. You've got to enjoy your life.
Are you a cake baker, just out of interest?
I'm a cake eater.
So, thinking about your racing career, obviously you had some huge successes, some real near misses in terms of podium places. It must have been so frustrating. You are now one of the Travelling Marshals, so an integral part of the team that keep road racing going on the Isle of Man. How did that all come about?
Well, I packed it. I'll just go back to 2007. Was obviously I thought I'll pack it in. I'll just do the TT as the last one for the centenary, and then I'm going to pack in. But I tried to do different things. Nothing scratched that itch of being able to ride a bike, especially around here. You name it, I've probably done it. I've jumped out of planes, I've scuba dived, track cars, I've done all that, enduros, motocross. I just tried all sorts of something to get that thrill, and nothing grabbed me. And it was, I think, 2014. Funny enough, James Muir, going back to where it all sort of started from, being I used to spanner for him at the start, and then his dad got me into it. He said, do you want to have a go at the track day? I thought, yeah, okay, I'll have a go on a track day. Well, I'm not really, I'll just got to stay away really from racing, but I'll have a go. And I went out there. Anyway, I got off. Funny enough, Slick's there watching other guys, and he goes, you do realise, he goes, if that was a race, that would put you in the top 3 in times. And I went, oh, don't tell me that. Just
for people who might not know who Slick is, can you give us a little brief overview?
Yeah, Slick Bass, or Slick Performance. He's got a workshop up in Andreas. Well, it's him and Andy Martin now, who's great with the classics. Slick was Carl Fogarty's main man, mechanic. 4 World Championships they won together. Slick's been around with the likes of Steve Hislop, Joey Dunlop, being their mechanics. The list is just endless, like Colin Edwards, and I don't know, you could just keep going and going and going with names. So if somebody like that says something like that to you after you've had a quick go round, yeah, I hadn't rode for a long time. Yeah, so that sort of sucked me back into racing. Okay, so I started racing again. I thought, I'll just do the Manx. So let's just do the Manx again. I think it was actually the next short circuit meeting which I got me racing licence, which I kept ticking over anyway. Slick was watching me go around, and he said to James, because I went out on a standard engine, he goes, if he can get a top 3, I'll build him an engine. And because I know he can't, because most of them bikes have got a tuned engine in. And he goes, so if he gets a top 3, I'll build an engine for free. Anyway, I got a 3rd place. That brought me back into racing proper. Andrew Dudgeon, ex-Manx Grand Prix winner, he was riding for Slick. I ended up joining the team, so now we're teammates. We've got bikes coming out of our ears and we're racing. We're off to Spain testing, and yeah, it all starts happening again. I thought, oh no. I did the Manx that year, 2014, and the 750 I wasn't happy with. It wasn't going too well, so we parked it up. 650, a bit like the 400 back in the day. It seemed like quite a good bike, this. And I remember riding around here and I was thinking, just trying to get me bearings and remembering everything where I was. And it was coming quite quick. Third lap of the race. Again, it was a sketchy practice for laps. So straight into a 4-lap race there. And I was on the 3rd lap. Got 1 more lap to go. And I was getting me signals. And I thought, I was in 4th place. And I knew my time was making up. And I thought, I could get a podium here. I knew Nick Jeffries was up ahead. And I thought, I can do this. I know I can get a podium for a comeback. I thought this would be quite good, and then I'm going to come back next year and I'm going to do really well. And anyway, I got to Douglas Road corner and I went to change down and there was no gear shift there. I thought, no, I couldn't believe it. I just held the bike to Ballaugh in top gear and pulled in at Ballaugh, and I thought, I'll just go to the pub. And then I thought, no, don't be defeated. let's see if we can couple this thing together and get it further on. I thought, it's man and machine. It's not just about me here. Let's get this bike back, salvage something out of this. And anyway, I managed to sort of couple something up, but I couldn't change by foot. I had to change gear by hand. And anyway, got me clobber back on, got going again.
Oh, so you'd actually stopped, literally, you had completely stopped. Wow.
Stopped, helmet off, gloves off, working on the bike at the side of the road at Ballaugh.
Making adjustments, that's what they say, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Luckily there was no TM there then, because he probably wouldn't have let me go with the way that gear shift was. So anyway, I sort of made it so I could change gear with me hand. I couldn't change by foot because the gear lever was basically vertical. I'd nursed it home. I got it home. Every thought was in my head though. If I stop somewhere where there's a pub, I thought I'll just go and drown my sorrows. But anyway, I got it home, got it back. Bizarrely enough, I still ended up 14th with a replica, and I thought, well, that's okay, that's good. So I thought I'm gonna assault this now. The next year, I'm gonna come into it even more determined and more ahead of myself as such. It was silly little things that can go wrong, which went wrong. And I went to Derby the next season. We were setting the bike up, we were doing this, and again the 750 I was having problems with suspension wise. That wasn't going too great. I thought, I'll park that up, let's concentrate on the 650. 650 was going great. I just won the race. I'd Dave Moffat and Andrew Dodge, my teammate, managed to beat him, which was unusual. He was always the one always the one at the front. Anyway, I won that race, so I was all hyped up, and I thought, I'll just take the 750 out. And I remember me missus saying, she goes, you said that didn't handle, it needs a new shock. And I goes, yeah, but I'll just tittle it around, because I'm on a high, and then we'll put it away and I'll sort that out. Anyway, I went out in it, and as I'm going around, I think, I don't know, I was probably sort of lying around about sort of 7th or something like that. But I'm looking up ahead, and I'm seeing where my teammate was, sort of up front, and I thought, I should be there really, I should be closer than this. So I was trying to wind it on, the back was everywhere. Anyway, it sent me off. I had a big high side, and I landed on my head. Concussion, well, I've had concussion before in accidents. Each time they get a little bit worse if you bang your head quite bad. That was fine. I had a few other injuries. They carted me off to Nobles, so they're in the ambulance. I remember going through the scanner for my other injuries, and then that's it then. I can't remember anything after that, apart from I wasn't in the scanner and I've got a load of people above me. Turns out, anyway, my heart had stopped from the electrical signals from the brain to the heart telling it not to go as such. So with that happening, the ACU took my licence off me for a year. Obviously they've got to be careful with head injuries, so I didn't have an ACU licence. So I thought, right, so that's not going to happen. I can't go to the Manx. That's the end of that. In the meantime, I've still got to scratch the itch. I've got to get on a bike, so I thought, let's go supermoto riding. You don't need an ACU licence for that. So I got a supermoto and we went out. It's only track day stuff. Anyway, unfortunately, I had another crash.
Oh my God.
And I broke my back in 2 places. Oh. At this point now, I'm thinking, right, I'm too old for crashing. I just seem to be getting worse. The injuries are getting worse. They did say don't take another bang to the head. All right, I've got to start calming down a little bit. So I thought, right, that's it. I'm not going to do it. I'm packing in. But then COVID obviously come along. Thought that's even better. Just keep me away from bikes. But then COVID ended. And in the meantime, who's now a good friend or good friends of mine is Izzard Racing moved over to the island, Nick and Trish. And they brought their classic bikes with them. And their riders, Dean Stimpson and Keith Clark, they live in the UK and they couldn't come over to test the bikes. So I got asked through Slick and Andy up there, would I be interested in testing the bikes? Well, yeah, okay, that's fine. Let's go testing. But because of everything it was with insurance and Derby track, you had to have a racing licence. Right, okay, that's not a problem. I'll just renew my racing licence, which I did, and I could go testing. Well, that testing then sort of started turning into racing again. But I was racing the classics this time, so Nick and Trish said, if you want to, race the bikes as well as testing them for us. Okay, so I ended up doing a little bit of racing, but we had a good time, we went to Goodwood a couple of times. I got a 3rd place up in Goodwood on the Rob North triple. They've let me ride some of their bikes are stunning. They're Manx Nortons. They've got a 4-valve Manx, which Michael Russell rides. What else is there? The Rob North triples. Got 2 of them. He's got Manx Nortons. We've got umpteen of them. And the special one, which I ride on parades, is the Rotary Norton. So I get a chance to ride that. So that sort of like was happening. And at the same time, I then got a phone call. It was Tony Duncan. He rang and said, would you be interested in becoming Travelling Marshal? And I thought to myself, when I packed in racing originally, I thought that would be nice to do, for something to give back to the sport. But it's not something that you go and ask to do, You don't go and say, can I be a Travelling Marshal? I think most people know that. Anyway, I say, out of nowhere, I get this phone call, Tony saying, would you be interested? I goes, well, yeah, I think so. But I've just started racing again. Hang on, and I'm doing that. I think, what do I do? I need to make decisions here. And anyway, I went for a cuppa. We met up and we talked about the job. And I did understand a little bit of what went on with being a Travelling Marshal, but to the full extent, I didn't. And I don't think many people do know the full extent of what a Travelling Marshal does. There is a heck of a lot to do. So when he explained it to me and asked me, I thought, I feel now I've come to a point in my life, especially at my age, I need to step away from the racing, because I was still getting offers then to ride at the Manx on modern machinery as well, and I thought, let's leave it to the young guys, all the up and coming. If I can go and be a Travelling Marshal with the lads, I think I can put more into the sport to help make it safer again and let someone else live their dreams and make it better for them, rather than me still trying to do it. It's, how should I say, I've had my time, I've done my bit, I'm never going to get any better than I was. It is the old scenario, the older you get, the faster you were. Let these young guys come along. So it's nice to be able to put something back into the sport. 2022 was my first time out as a Travelling Marshal, and I thought the idea was I was going to go and sort of ghost them, just go and watch what they're doing and sit on the sideline, or even be there ready if one of them fell ill or something happened. I would then jump on the bike. But it wasn't. It was, there's your bike, right, you're going up the grandstand, right, okay, because now I've got comms in my ear, I'm hearing incidents going off around the circuit and someone else gets moved, and then Tony straight away, right, Ballacrane. Oh, right, okay, yeah, off to Ballacrane. This is like literally, it's all new to me as such. Obviously I've had training, medical training and helicopter training, fire training and so on and so forth, all the stuff that we have to do. We've had all the debriefs and so on. Yeah, I'm sat at Ballacrane and I thought, well, I've heard about the cakes, because Jim likes to eat all the cakes down there. I thought, I'm going to get there and get some cakes. I take my helmet off, just about to introduce myself to all the guys down there, and next minute I get a shout, there's been an incident. Helmet back on, gloves back on. Well, this is it now, my first incident. There I go, I'm scooting off. I come around the corner, and what do I see? A ball of fire. A ball of fire. I got a rider in the road. I thought, oh my god, this looks like something out of a film. So just park the bike up, let's get in. Marshals down there are absolutely fantastic. Laurel Bank, by the way. Marshals everywhere. I kid you not, they're worth their weight in gold. They really are fantastic, the jobs that they do. So I get there, and obviously they're already dealing with the incident, but we've got more going on. You got 2 fire extinguishers, you've got a big fire going on here, there's split petrol tank, there's obviously we've got bikes still coming through, so it's managing. We're there now to help the guys with scene management. We're reporting back to race control to explain what's happening, what's going on, what we can do to keep everything sort of moving and active. And I always remember the lads saying to me prior to starting, just try and not create it so it's a red flag situation. We try and manage everything so everyone still keeps going. If there's casualties, getting them looked after and getting them to the right place, seeing the right people, and just keeping everything flowing. Anyway, my first incident was a red flag, unfortunately. But Sam West, who it was, we got him airlifted off, and he was actually racing again the next day, which was quite surprising because he did look a little bit sore when we were at the incident with him. Yeah, he left his mark. He certainly left his mark with the bike going on fire the way it did.
I think he did, and you can listen back to Sam West's podcast and the Journey to a Dream episodes as well. And from your point of view, I know we've spoken to Jim Hunter and Jonathan Woodward, both of your TM colleagues. There is a real sense of relief, I think, when a travelling marshal turns up, because it's like, do you know what, it's going to be okay now. Woody talks about when Jim Hunter turned up to his incident, he was like, oh, it's okay now. How does it feel being that person? I had
a scenario of an incident I did go to, and again, I can't say enough of how good the marshals are. We were obviously dealing with an injured rider who's down the side of an embankment, and he had quite a few injuries. And I just remember seeing some of the marshals, and they were a bit sort of, because of the way the incident was, a couple of them were a little bit flustered, and all you have to do is, we're there to try and sort of comment. You've got to remember, a lot of them have just watched this accident unfold right in front of them, so the adrenaline is just shooting way high, and then sometimes panic can set in. We're coming to the incident, it's not... I mean, we have had incidents do happen in front of us, but we turn up to the incident, so we've already got a level head, we've got people talking to us, so we're already sort of getting an idea of what's panning out sometimes, of exactly what we're going to see. And I suppose, because we get there, the relief for the marshals is another thing, but I have seen, panic in a couple, and then once they see you, they feel better in themselves knowing you're there, and when you ask them to do something and then you just explain it, even with the IMC training, it all clicks in. Then you've got to have this IMC training, which basically is, it's life support really at the end of the day. If there is any significant injuries, to help with that, how to remove helmets, how to stretch people, and so on and so forth. They know what they're doing themselves, but sometimes they can forget certain things because it's all happening raw in front of them. You're just there. It's just there to, be that calming person to say, right, let's do this, let's do that, and we can do it this way, and so on and so forth. And I've had marshals say afterwards, oh, it's been great. Yeah, I just realised I should have done this, I should have done that, but you've told me before I've even got there, It's just that extra set of hands and that extra head that's a little bit clearer, that hasn't just had it all unfold right in front of them.
It's still difficult though, isn't it? Because you don't really know, although you say you get some sort of communication, but you can't possibly know exactly what sort of scene you're going to come to, and it's just, I don't know how you mentally prepare yourself, I suppose.
The other job we're doing is, while we're standing at the side of the road, we're not just standing there looking vacant. We're looking at bikes. We're looking, is there oil coming out of that bike? Is it smoking a bit much? Is that chain loose? Is the fairing coming off? And, the marshals are doing that as well, but we're also doing that. So we're looking. So you continuously think, right, that's number 56 just gone through. Yeah, looks all right. Yeah, number 62 just gone through. Yeah, that's okay, and so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, you're here. Could be your call, or I could hear someone else, one of the other TMs, getting a call, but I might get a shout saying, Mike 6, stand by. So straight away you're alert, you're getting your kit on, getting ready to get that bike fired off. You're on standby, and then it'll be, Mike 6, incident, such and such a place. So that's it then. You're on the bike. What you've got to remember then is, as you're pulling off, you've got to remember there's bikes coming behind you, so got to be wary of that. Who's coming? They'll tell you. If there's some fast riders coming, they'll tell you anyway. You're in control. You've got such and such riders approaching, you've got time to move out now. Also got marshals there straight away, they know when we've been shouted, so they'll have flags at the ready to get us out onto track. In the meantime, you're thinking about who's coming behind you. Plus, I'm pulling away here with cold tyres, I've got a full tank of fuel, and I've got to go to that incident. I've got to get there quite handy. So because you're analysing everything that's going on in just that sense, the incident is there, it's in your mind, but you've got to get there safely first. Then let's deal with what we got. First thing you got to do is find where you can get safely pulled up, so you're not going to be a hindrance to other riders coming through. So yeah, it's. I don't think. I think your sort of inner adrenaline is just keeping you active. It's keeping you sharp. You haven't got real sort of time to, overanalyse things. So you just get there, look at the incident, see what we've got.
It must be mentally exhausting after all of that's done. You know, if you think about TT, 2 weeks, you know, the Southern as well, don't you? And,
yes.
and the MGP, you must have nothing left to give.
You do feel like you need a break at the end of it. Yeah, it is quite tiring. The days can be long sometimes. Also, we're weathermen too, you know. We go out, we're scouting the roads early in the morning, we're checking for any issues, and usually there's an issue. You know, the Isle of Man is the bizarrest place ever. You know, it could be absolutely fantastic one day, and then the next day, like we've seen, you know, you've got drains swilling water out, you've got burst water mains. Another day, you've got a tractor might have pulled out, you know, just before practice. It's not his fault, but they're working, and you know, and they're coming out on the road. Next minute, there's a load of mud on the road. So already we're active in that sort of thing. I think we need to get a sweeper down to such and such, or or there's been an accident, an RTC, for instance, on the open road. So we'll be there as well with the police and so on, so we can make sure everything's cleaned up, safe enough for then the roads to be shut for the guys to go racing on. You know, there's always something. You know, it could be a stray animal heading out onto the roads, or absolutely, it's mind-boggling what can go on around here. You know, so we're doing that in the mornings, and then obviously we're doing what we do in the day, and then it comes later on. After last Travelling Marshal's gone through, we can either tag on with him, go back to the grandstand, or we can head home, for instance. But yeah, it's a long day sometimes. And
from everything you're saying, the communication is at the heart of everything that you do, and certainly the whole team that make motor racing viable here on the island.
Absolutely. What they do in Control Tower is phenomenal. A lot of people don't understand exactly what goes on up there. I mean, just for our side of things alone, just as a Travelling Marshal, that's incredible. Just for what they're dealing with up there in Control, they're listening to us, which then goes back to obviously Gary Thompson, and you know, he's got to deal with that, but he's got other things going on as well, and his team. So there's so much going on. It's absolutely phenomenal, like, you know, but everyone plays a big part. I mean, I'm just one of the Travelling Marshals. Tony Duncan, who's head Travelling Marshal, he's got his stuff to deal with as well. We've herding a bunch of Travelling Marshals, so he's got his things to deal with there, and then he's later on there, it's all the debriefing, and people don't understand how much work and effort and time goes into it all. And being a rider myself back in the day, I didn't have a clue of any of that. All I knew was going to get on my motorbike and I was going to go down Bray Hill and I was going to come back, get some fuel and go back out again. And that's all it was. You don't think about the incidents or having incidents yourself and so on. You're just fixated. I just want to get around that course, you know. And then you're looking at timesheets and sector times, all stuff that these guys are all sorting out up in Control as well. You know, they're doing all that timesheets for them, the sector times for them. Again, it's mind-boggling. It really is.
I mean, you talked a little bit earlier about scratching the itch of racing. Is being a Travelling Marshal enough for you for that?
Absolutely. Tony said, now you've seen what you've seen as such and do what you do, you probably don't want to go racing again, do you? But I wouldn't say that I wouldn't go racing again, but it's given me more. I see more of the worst side of things with the racing, you know, how it happens. We've all pretty much, not many guys that go racing can say they've not had any incidents and they've come away unscathed. We've all had some sort of incident of some type.
Have you had anybody who's trying to protest that they haven't got a broken leg when they have?
Like myself? Yeah. I've forgotten his name. He was a foreign lad. I had to get him air-medded off. I knew he was injured quite bad. Couldn't speak a word of English. The doctor was fantastic. They were talking in another language between themselves. So he was from one country, he's from another country, but they were speaking in a different country language to communicate. And this lad, he obviously got took to hospital. Yeah, last year. He got took to hospital. He'd signed himself pretty much straight out. He was down the paddock in his gown, and he was going to his team, and he was going, I'm just going to fly home, basically. He's going to get his gear and fly home. But he'd gone down there in his gown, signed himself out. Turned out he had 14 breaks. So, yeah, there's someone that was pretty adamant he hadn't had any injuries.
As we're speaking, it's coming up to a couple of weeks since MGP 2024. We know because of the weather, it was such a frustrating time for so many. But, Derran, I think what really gets me is there's still such a huge passion and a huge desire among newcomers particularly, and it must be quite something for you to see that, to recognise elements of yourself in these people and genuinely just want them to do the best that they can.
Absolutely. It was 28 or 29 newcomers, so to see newcomers now, I say it's unfortunate they don't have their own race. You know, that really was a good thing. But I mean, the way things have progressed and how things are, they're getting chucked in with the main guys. But what they're doing now is it's so much safer. These guys, they're top of the game. You know, people think, oh, that's a newcomer, he's not got hardly any experience, you know, and they're sending them out around the TT circuit and a bunch of guys that are a bit more sort of savvy to the road racing. These guys aren't wet behind the ears or out like that. These guys know what they're doing. They get selected, so they probably dwindled 80 to 100 guys down to just under 30 fellas. There was no ladies this year. You've got these guys. What they do, they get brought over to the Isle of Man. Then they've got to come here a long time before. There'll be new guys coming soon, actually, ready for next year. I'm one of the ACU TT course for the Manx Grand Prix instructors for these guys. I mean, there's probably about a dozen of us, and we'll take them around. So there'll be weekends where they have to come over, and we'll be doing lap after lap after lap. We'll just be drilling in their head everywhere around this course, basically as a safety side of things. These are your apexes, you know, this is what you want to look for there, but it's all our own take. If I'm saying something, it might be different to, say, like when Jonathan Wood would take someone around. He's telling me his sort of take on it. Carolyn Sells, or Johnny Barton, or Milky. Everyone has their own take on how to get around here. And as we say, we're not here to make you go fast. We're here to make you be safe. And this is what you need to know. We're drilling this into them, so they'll be spending like a weekend, then they'll go away, then they'll filter through little odds and sods. They'll just come over and they'll give you a ring. They'll go out with me, they might go out with Tony Duncan, or they might go out with Milky. They'll do that. Then there'll be another weekend. It's all like assessment stuff, you know, that they're getting assessed on, that they know where they're going. I could turn around, for instance, and say, right, where would you place yourself? Come up to Crosby. Where would you be on the road?
I'll be in the hedge watching.
Yeah. Just little things. And then, you know, just if they can answer you that, or, you know, and we're just trying to feed into them about this course. When you race around here, you can go into a momentary lapse. You can drift off. You can start thinking about what you're having for tea tonight. You're on your own out there. You're doing 150 mile an hour, but your mind goes to that speed, so it feels like you're walking pace. You almost feel like you can get off the bike, say, coming up to Bluff Bridge. You think you've stopped, but you're not. You're still travelling at 60, 70 mile an hour coming there, and teaching them to train their mind to be able to slow down, because you've never gone so fast for so long, and your mind carries up to that sort of speed, if that makes sense. So just explain to them about the Isle of Man is different to any circuit that you've ever done and in the world. It really is unique. So we're there explaining this or explaining that to try and make it safer for them, and it shows. I mean, I watched an onboard of one of the newcomers. He had his own camera on, and I went and looked at it the other day. He's one of the guys I was taking around for his newcomers lap, actually. And I thought I watched what he was doing, and he was so on point. He was hitting all the apexes. He was absolutely fantastic, you know. So
that must be quite a proud moment for you as well, seeing them.
It is. I mean, yeah. I mean, they obviously take on board what we're saying. I mean, if there was someone out there and we had concerns, he wouldn't be out there. You know, they wouldn't be allowed to go down Bray Hill. None of them are new to racing. They all know what they're doing. They can ride a bike for sure, and they can go fast. And
I guess having the input into the newcomers makes what could be a very long winter without any specific motorcycle events a little bit more bearable, perhaps.
Absolutely. It doesn't stop. The Manx Grand Prix and the TT is continuous. Anyone that's riding it, as soon as they've done the event, whether it be the TT or the Manx, as soon as that bike's parked up, they're already building next year's bike. They're thinking about next year. They're looking for the sponsors. They're getting levers made, helmets done. They're already thinking about next year. This place needs that. You've got to be ahead of yourself. You can't just go out there and 6 weeks before say, right, I'm going to go and do the Manx Grand Prix. Or it doesn't work like that anyway, you know. You've got to get signatures anyway. But anyone that goes around here has got to do their homework. That's the sort of place this is.
Do you ever get bored of doing laps of the mountain course?
No. It's bizarre. I don't know, about 240 odd corners or whatever it is. I've been around here enough times now, and I've seen enough. You feel like you know it, but you don't. You'll never stop learning the TT circuit, because it is always changing. There's always little changes here and there. I mean, for instance, the way the tarmac's changed. There's different types of tarmac, you know, so you're looking at them, different surfaces. At Solby Straight, for instance, I remember the days when that used to be like a billiard table, and I've slowly watched it getting bumpier and bumpier and bumpier, you know. It's the whole place changes, as does machinery as well. So no, you don't get bored. You know, there's always something to learn around here. Even myself, I can go around here and learn something new.
And before we go, we should just mention that you've got a fairly well-known pair of nephews who race over here.
Yes, Ryan and Callum Crowe. Yeah, they've certainly made their mark, haven't they, on the TT? You know, they've come into it all guns blazing, and they're doing fantastic. You know, the boys are actually brilliant.
How difficult is that for you, though, knowing that they're out there and you having that degree of responsibility that you do around the TT course?
Yeah, the thing about racing around here and doing the TMing, you know a lot of the riders. If you do go to an incident and you know the rider, that's fair enough. But knowing that it's your nephews, it does give that little bit of extra sort of heart flutter. I mean, the guys, they had an incident there at Laurelbank, and I heard Tony get the shout, go to them, and when I heard it was them, my heart, it sank. And it is a worry if I was to have to go, but the job takes over. You know, you do what you do and you just try and make it as safe as possible. But seeing the two lads going around, like, you know, it puts a smile on my face. And, you know, you shouldn't be biased, but I'm rooting for them all the time, you know. But lovely kids, they really are.
And how well they did this year as well.
Oh, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Like, you know, it's just, and they're onwards and upwards all the time, and they're so new. They've took on board, I mean, they've listened to their dad. Their dad's won TTs around here plenty, and obviously he had an unfortunate incident there, again, with the rabbit. Anything can happen around here. And the guys fully understand it, you know, and they know the risk. I mean, my sister, bless her, she's right behind them all the way. She really is. But, geez, she must be in flipping bits sometimes, you know. Her heart must be in her mouth most of the time. But they do. They listen. They do the job, and they come back. You know, everyone knows, or we all know, that they're not just riding with their hearts. They're out there with their heads. They're sensible kids, you know what I mean? And, you know, there's lots more to come.
Very proud uncle, them.
Very, very proud.
What would you say then if someone's listening and perhaps has got racing on the mountain course in their sights? What would be the best piece of advice you could give them?
Definitely listen to people. This is the worry. When you got newcomers and they are good at what they do, it's getting them to understand that this place is definitely unique, and to listen to the advice of older experienced riders, and not just riders, just older experienced people that have been around and know this course, just to take on board what they say. I even remember myself back when I was, you know, a newcomer, and they were saying follow the classic guys. You're thinking, why would I want to follow that slow old thing? You know, I'm faster than that. I should, you know? But you learn so much. Take on board. Again, if I'd have listened to the guys on the start line that day I went down last night, I practiced as a newcomer. If I'd have listened to what they said, I would have been racing on the Monday, you know. And it's sometimes when you're younger and you're racing and you are good at racing, you become a little bit hot-headed and fixated. So you got to, again, I'll say it again, make haste slowly. That's the biggest bit of advice I could sort of give.
But knowing everything that you know now, you'd still go through it all again?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to go back, knowing what I know now, to do it. I definitely would have better results, definitely.
Oh, Derran, it's been brilliant talking to you. Thank you so much for coming in, and here's to the winter not being so long, eh?
It might be a real hot one, eh? And you never know. Thank you.
Derran Slous. It was just brilliant to talk to him, especially because he does have that unique perspective, seeing motorcycle racing literally from both sides as the rider and now as somebody who supports riders in all sorts of different ways. And that gives him, clearly, you can hear it, such empathy as well. I'm also going to put on the podcast page a link to the YouTube videos that a former Journey to a Dream podcast guest, Jonathan Woodward, a fellow Travelling Marshal of Derran's, does. And it gives a real insight, I think, into Travelling Marshals and gives you a glimpse into things that you might not normally see. So it's a really fascinating watch. Do take a look at that. Journey to a Dream is brought to you by Kawasaki Insurance. You can find out more about them and how you can get covered by visiting their website, kawasaki-insurance.co.uk. As ever, I'd love to hear from you if you'd like to take part in the podcast. BethSB@manxradio.com is the best email address. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.